Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to talk about Survivor Season 46. This was a great season, and if you haven't watched, you can use my link below to try Paramount Plus for free. For the most part, this video is a compilation of all my recaps from the season, stitched together into one video, but I've gone through and modified some of it, and even added some additional commentary now that I've seen the whole season. Give me a like and subscribe if you like the video, and sit back, relax, and enjoy Survivor 46. The season starts with episode 1 titled, This is Where the Legends Are Made. We open to a whole soliloquy from Tevin, overscoring gorgeous shots of the other players looking their absolute worst. The survivors ride in on boats and we meet Banu.
From Slumdog to Survivor, baby!
Jess.
I know I'm a little odd.
And Hunter and Charlie, who have a lot in common.
If people bond over being huge Taylor Swift fans, I won't have that.
Got my Taylor Swift socks, Eras Tour merch.
After a break, a back shot of Jeff that doesn't sound like bongos, and he greets them. Jeff asks the important questions.
Who vomited?
I know Jeff was talking about positivity all week and not wanting villains, but Jeff really gives a negative villainous speech here.
You all right now believe you can win this game, but it's simply not true. There is at least one of you that cannot win, no matter who you go to the end with.
I felt like Jeff's comments were BS in the moment, and watching the season in full, I do think every single person on this cast could have won the game if they made good decisions. Interesting to note, Jeff doesn't ask anyone Matt questions. He introduces the purple tribe, Yanu. By the way, this color purple is so pretty. The green tribe is Siga. Jeff announces the orange tribe as Nami, which sets Soda off. They start with a reward challenge. In pairs, they have to crawl under a net to get pieces that will build a podium to get their flint. The first tribe to finish wins the tribe supplies. The second tribe gets to choose between Sweat and Savvy, leaving the losers with the other option. The stakes for this seemed very low, and it seems like this challenge only exists to get them covered in mud for the promo shots. They get started with many of them struggling to see because they have mud in their eyes. Maria impresses Jeff by carrying pieces on her back. They all get to their puzzles around the same time, but Orange gets done first, with Tevin getting the ring and winning the reward for the tribe. Jelinsky leaves his puzzle to try to copy the Orange puzzle, but it's too late because Charlie gets the flint for Green. The Green Sigas choose the Savvy challenge, sending Purple Yanu to do the Sweat. At Yanu, the Sweat challenge is taking laps with water buckets to fill urns with seawater. They end up choosing Q and Jelinsky to do it. Q shares that he's one of 17 kids and is a successful real estate agent. Back at camp, Banu shares that he grew up in a hut in India and now he's a US citizen, which bonds him with the women of the tribe and the local fruits.
Sweet papaya.
And then they eat ants. At Green Siga, two players need to do a really difficult looking logic math puzzle. Ben and Charlie volunteer. I honestly still have no idea what they're supposed to do. At camp, Maria and Tim bond over having kids, but Maria doesn't want to play the mom role this season.
Mommy is gonna lie, cheat, and steal. There's only one way to win, and that's by taking everyone else out.
The show edits this puzzle to make the guys seem like dummies who can't see the obvious hints in the puzzle, but this truly was a death sentence, and they fail the Savvy challenge. At Nami, they're having a great time in the water, and Liz is bragging.
I've owned 4 companies. I'm pretty awesome.
Huh. Soda makes the first fire of the season.
We had it roaring flames.
Back at Yanu, the Sweat challenge is so hard it breaks the fourth wall. Jelinsky doesn't think they can complete it and decides that they should quit against Q's wishes, and he throws the hourglass. This was littering. Q is not happy and sees Jelinsky as a quitter. At Siga, the tribe is supportive of the Savvy failure, and Ben has a good attitude and is trying to keep everyone in good spirits.
Ben is like the vibe god.
He gives us confidence in ourselves.
We're surviving.
Jem and Mariah bond over being nerdy, and Mariah tells us that she struggles to make friends, but she seemingly makes a little alliance with Jem and Maria. She says,
I've made new friends. It feels incredible.
Watching this, I'm like, no, Mariah, don't trust your new friends. At Yanu, vibes are good and fun. Kenzie is being a social butterfly, making deals with everyone on the tribe.
I'm the queen of the tribe right now.
It's so interesting to see Kenzie having such a grip on the social game at Yanu, referring to herself as the queen of the tribe this early in the game, which could have been set up for a big fall from grace, or maybe she does got it like that. Kenzie feels like Jess isn't down to talk game with her and reports back to Tiffany about Jess, saying that she, Tiffany, Jelinsky, and Q are a 4-person alliance. At Nami, a musical moment.
This earthly house.
Hunter doesn't like the singing, but decides that working with Tevin will help him in the game. They bond over loving Andy Griffith, and there's a silly edit of them bonding. Tevin tells us he's an actor and he's acting his way through the game. At Siga, the girls decide to recruit Swifty Charlie into their alliance and call themselves Charlie's Angels, so they approach him and he's down. Tim sees this and lets his problematic flag fly.
I'm all about women empowerment, but
I'm gonna stop you right there, buddy. I've heard enough. At Nami, Tevin calls Venus a princess, and she decides she needs to start playing hard, so she starts looking for an idol. Randon catches her searching and wants to expose her to the rest of the group, so he goes to Soda and calls her a Parvati Light, but Soda doesn't like a rat, so she tells Venus about this.
But like, how dare you assume correctly that I was being sneaky?
At each camp, boats arrive, and they have to send one person on a journey. Jelinsky, Maria, and Tevin go on the journey.
This is where the legends are made.
Oh, he said the thing. They have to play a game with 3 cards. One person will get a torch, one has a vote, and one has a skull. Basically, the 2 other players have to convince the torch player that they have the vote. Maria gets the torch, Jelinsky gets the skull, and Tevin gets the vote. So basically, if Jelinsky can trick Maria, he gets an extra vote and they both lose their votes. And if he doesn't, they both get extra votes and he loses his. So Jelinsky and Tevin are both trying to convince Maria, and they both come off like bad liars, even though Tevin is telling the truth. Maria decides to straight up threaten Jelinsky, saying that if she catches him lying, she's going to tattle to her team, and he instantly folds, admitting that he's lying and kind of blowing all the fun of this game. I think the producers wanted this to be like a traitors roundtable. So Tevin and Maria get extra votes and Jelinsky loses his vote. Jelinsky gets back to his camp and explains what happened to his tribe, and they hate hearing this sad tale. They're incensed that he lost his vote, especially Banu.
This is Survivor. You cannot give up like that. You gotta dig deep. Hello?
Back at Siga, Maria tells them about her extra vote, and Tim is pressed like a misogynist panini. At Yanu, they have a terrible night's sleep, especially because their shelter collapses on them. Jess says that her ADHD is making her mess up and lose her things, but she's making people like her just by being herself. Tiffany finds a beware advantage with Kenzie, and they find a locked box that contains the idol and says she'll get more instructions on how to get the idol out of the box if they lose an immunity challenge. They tell Q about the box, so these 3 seem to be the real 3 alliance on the tribe. Their immunity challenge looks like a doozy. They have to race to the top of a ramp to untie the cutest giant gecko, and they have to navigate through obstacles and solve a giant puzzle. Jeff reveals the immunity idols that look like they're saying we saw you from across the bar and like your vibe, and they get started. The tribes are neck and neck, but again, the geckos are so cute. Jeff is also very strict that the geckos need to be face down and forward facing because we can't miss a single moment of these majestic creatures crawling through the challenge. Nami tribe pulls far ahead, putting Soda and Venus on the puzzle. Siga gets to the puzzle second, putting Mariah and Maria on it, and Yanu puts Jelinsky and Jess on the puzzle. Nami then Siga end up winning the immunity, and Yanu is going to head to tribal. They weren't even close, and Jelinsky frustrated Kenzie along the way for not listening to her. Back at camp, Tiffany tells the other players she wants Jess out. In the shelter, Jelinsky tells Jess that they're the targets, and Tiffany and Kenzie find a puzzle they need to figure out to get a key to the box that has the idol in it. So Tiffany goes on a whole adventure.
In the shallow waters at the point. What is the point? That looks pointy.
Tiffany finds the key at the pointy point and fully sprints across the island to open her box and get her vote and the idol. Q tells Banu that he wants Jelinsky out because he has bad work ethic. The 4 deciding players debate their decision, and it seems like they're weighing out Jess's smarts against Jelinsky's strength. They head to tribal, where Jess says the hardest part is her lack of sleep. When asked, Q and Jelinsky avoid talking about quitting the sweat challenge, and Jeff isn't having it, pressuring Jelinsky to own it, and once again he folds.
You quit.
You're right. We quit the challenge.
They bring up Jelinsky giving up his vote, and they all are obviously resentful with him over it. When we get to her, Jess struggles to form sentences, again saying her brain is messed up from no sleep. Jelinsky makes an almost good plea to the group.
I will never, ever give up in a challenge, except for the sweat task.
So they head to vote, nobody plays their shot in the dark, and Jelinsky is voted out unanimously. So let's talk about this player who had so much potential. Firstly, I like his voice. He sounds like a hidden identity in a documentary. Talking about his game, he comes in, tries to cheat in the reward challenge, but fails at that. Then he doesn't even try to finish the sweat challenge. If he would have tried, he could have at least had a bond and brotherhood with Q, but he loses Q's respect there. After this, the girls don't seem to care that much that he quit the sweat challenge, but he loses their respect when he fights to go on the journey where he should have just let someone else go, and he completely fumbles that. Then he's in point position in the immunity challenge and he messes that up. Then he gets back to camp, and even Jess is like, why are you laying in the shelter? Shouldn't you be strategizing? And he spends the tribal council insensitively joking about things he did to piss everyone off while they're still salty about it. So overall, this is one of the most active tanking of your own games in the history of Survivor. But somehow I still don't think he's a terrible player. I think he wins a first boot season if that were to ever happen. Moving on to episode 2 titled Scorpio Energy. Back at Yanu after tribal, Banu is nervous that his position on the tribe is shaky. He goes to Kenzie asking for advice, and her advice is,
How can I work this?
We have to win.
Kenzie sees Banu as a liability because he isn't able to keep their plans secret. Q and Tiffany recognize that Kenzie is being a social butterfly.
It makes me a little nervous.
Just gotta watch.
The tribe struggles with making fire, cutting leaves, cutting coconuts. Kenzie breaks down and goes on a winter's walk to sit and cry in a cave.
Do my eyes look really blue? Good.
After the glorious main credits, the Nami tribe are laughing and laughing. Tevin tells us that he's aligned with Hunter and Soda, but he doesn't trust Venus. Tevin shares his distrust of Venus with Soda, and she decides to distance herself from Venus. Venus even asks Soda to talk, and she says,
Today, probably not, but
Not at all today?
I'm screwed.
Venus breaks down feeling lonely and ignored and shares with us that her parents immigrated from Iran to Canada and how she wants to be seen as a tough Persian woman, but is struggling to connect with everyone else. At Siga, Ben makes fire and cries.
I'm crying thinking about fire. I didn't even cry over meeting Nicolas Cage.
And he shares that he was bullied when he was younger, but then he found music and now he made fire. Tim feels like he's in a good place because he bonded with the guys, but he's concerned about Maria's extra vote. The guys want to recruit Maria, but there's also the Charlie's Angel alliance with the women and Charlie, which worries Charlie.
The 3 women and myself, Charlie's Angels. If we lose 3 times, it's just the Angels.
So he decides to bond closer with Maria and make her his close murdering duo. Back at Nami, Venus is trying.
Guys, look. I gave him a little headband.
So her next plan is to find an idol, but Randon and Hunter are also looking for it. Randon finds the Beware advantage, opens it, and finds the same box that Tiffany found in the premiere with the lock, and the same rules that the key isn't available until after they lose immunity. At Yanu, silly Jess is loving eating her ants.
I feel like we should cook worms.
And Jess shares a little about her life in an effort to get herself closer with the group. In the process, Banu is doing the opposite.
What does she need?
How do you know that?
Rush hour, baby.
What is rush hour?
Kenzie is overplaying and takes Jess and Banu to her crying cave and makes a final 3 with them, suggesting that they
Get rid of our strongest people? Yeah.
She doesn't get a positive reaction from them and tells them that they can't tell Q and Tiffany that they had this conversation. As they walk back, Jess tells Banu. When they get back to camp, Jess instantly rats this conversation back to Q. At Siga, Charlie is trying to bond with the group and they play a Metallica versus Taylor Swift game.
Jump in the fire. Should have said no. Sad but true. This is why we can't have nice things.
Charlie wins this game, listing allegedly 108 Taylor Swift songs, which is insane. At Nami, Liz is bragging again.
There is a special type of man who can deal with someone making so much money. Everybody wants to be with Liz, trust me.
Randon decides to trust
The one person I originally thought not to trust.
and tell Venus about his Beware advantage. It's a weird decision to give her so much power over him after dragging her for days. At the immunity challenge, Jeff announces Jelinsky was voted out and the other tribes think it's hilarious, but Yanu has their game faces on and there are heated words.
Well, right now, Jeff, in this game, we're the laughing stock. Now we're down to 5, and we'll see if their 5 is better than ours.
You gonna see 5-5? Here we go. How's the food?
Hunger is not closest to my mind.
Fire.
Jeff ships the idols,
This is cute.
then pulls out a knife to denamify the idol.
You gotta win this item. Scorpio energy right there.
Oop, he said the thing. For their challenge, they need to untie a machete to release a cart, then navigate the cart through obstacles to do a giant archway puzzle. The first 2 tribes to finish will win immunity and fishing gear. Jeff asks for sit-outs, and they are twins Mariah and
The one and only Liz.
Yanu starts off in last, but they eventually pass Siga. Meanwhile, long-lost sisters Mariah and Liz are having their Tia Tamara moment on the bench.
Mo, I'm Liz.
Nice to meet you, Liz.
Nice to meet you.
I love your glasses, by the way.
Thank you. I love your socks.
All 3 tribes get to the puzzle at about the same time, and Venus is the first to figure out the word. Soon after, all 3 tribes figure out that the word is persistence, but they're struggling to keep their puzzles up. Nami thinks they have it, but they spell out persistence and have to start again. Yanu is getting frustrated with Jess, with Banu yelling at her.
Jess, come on. Another piece touchdown.
Nami comes in first. Siga wins immunity too, with a very frustrated Yanu heading back to tribal again. Jeff asks Banu where he feels they slipped up and he blames the planning. Tiffany is not happy and Jess points out that everybody was yelling at her during the challenge, so she thinks Tiffany's mood is directed at her.
She's gonna give me a spanking back at camp.
Back at camp, Nami gets their fishing gear.
I feel like Rupert.
And Venus is pissed off because she got her toe run over by the cart in the challenge. Venus expresses annoyance with Soda for snatching the immunity idol from her at every opportunity and wants to take the opportunity to work with Randon to get to the merge and then turn on them. At Yanu, Tiffany breaks down and walks away alone. She's frustrated with how she behaved at the challenge.
I don't
don't want their perception of me to be this crazy, angry black girl that can't keep her cool during challenges.
Kenzie makes an elaborate plan to hide a fake idol and trick Jess into thinking she has an idol so she doesn't play her shot in the dark, complete with the note from Tiffany's idol. So they hide the fake idol, Tiffany convinces Jess to go look for an idol, and Jess gives it minimal effort.
This is somebody's house. I don't think I should stick my hand. I don't think it's in this area.
Then they make a new plan for Q to just straight up give Jess the idol and tell her to vote for who he wants her to vote for. Q tells Jess to vote for Kenzie and says he wants both Jess and Kenzie out, so it's a win-win for him. Banu cuts his finger open and puts the blood on his forehead. Jess tells us she suspects that the idol is fake because it looks just like the beads on the Survivor gear. She confronts Q about it and he does a serviceable job lying to her. She still suspects he's lying, but she says she might as well play it. Then Jess tries to get Tiffany to vote for Kenzie. Jess also tells Banu and Q that the girls want to vote for Banu, and Banu instantly panics. Q seems sympathetic to them both and needs Tiffany on board to turn on Kenzie. Q and Tiffany do meet, and it's clear that Q and Tiffany are making the final decision for this vote. They get to tribal, and Jess is a lot more confident and vocal at this tribal.
Banu cut his finger with the machete today just to feed us.
You mean he fed you part of his flesh?
I wish. I really need the protein.
Jess and Kenzie get into a scuff-up about Kenzie being the real threat in the game. Tiffany talks about being upset in the challenge and holding her emotions back, and Banu talks about how he shows all of his emotions. Banu is passionately advocating for himself, but really is putting his whole game out there and announcing that he has an alliance with Kenzie, Q, and Tiffany. During this, Q is visibly unhappy with Banu for being so blabby, and he and the others clearly are seeing him as a liability in a merge situation because he'll blow all their plans up. Before they vote, Banu is still acting sus.
Whoever you want. I'll be voting up tonight. Stop making the black hats.
So they get to the votes, and Jess plays her fake idol, which Jeff announces as fake, and Jess ends up voted out in a 4-1 vote. So we have to say goodbye to Jess here, who I loved in her preseason interviews. I think she's hilarious. She's someone I would gravitate towards if I were on a tribe with her. She's a memorable character and definitely did have some game sense to her, but she got off to a rocky start last week, both socially and in the challenge, and I feel like they gave her a second chance in good faith, but now they go to another challenge and lose, and she really contributed greatly to the loss of this challenge. I can see why logically they voted her out. I think what really gives me the ick about this episode is a lot of the stuff in this episode felt a lot like bullying to me. It was nice of them to give her another chance, but don't do it if you're going to be screaming at her in the challenge. That was really icky to me. Then they go back to camp and come up with this elaborate plan to trick her, and they didn't even really succeed at tricking her. They insulted her intelligence. Really, this whole tribe kind of made themselves look bad this episode, and any remorse that they had, they felt bad about the way that they made themselves look, but they didn't feel bad about the way that they made Jess feel. Back to Jess, I think she's great. I don't think we'll ever see her on TV again. Pretty out of her element here, but I'm glad that she could be away from these people. Moving on to episode 3, titled Wackadoodles Win. Yanu heads back to camp after tribal, and they have to explain to Banu that they made and gave Jess a fake idol, really showing Banu that he was completely left out of the plans. They tried to help Banu understand that he needs to play the game more at tribal council.
They're saying you don't have to give honest answers to Jeff, bro. Give him any kind of crap. But I can't do that.
The next morning, they wake up in the dirt where they slept. Banu feels like his head is on the chopping block against the unimind of the other players.
1 mind versus 3.
He tears up and desperately searches for an idol that Tiffany's already found. Banu goes to Kenzie and asks her for help.
I need some help, Kenzie.
But Kenzie says that Banu has no game and basically tells him if he wants to work with her, he needs to come up with a good plan, which leads to this branding.
She's like this mermaid dragon. Remember that.
Okay, Banu, I'll remember. Thanks for the tip. Banu finds better help from Q, who takes him under his wing as his coach and tells Banu that he's the Philip to his Boston Rob.
We have a great shot at winning.
I cannot win. I'm a wackadoodle.
Wackadoodles win.
Oop, he said the thing. Banu later overthinks this conversation and says that Q's motivation could be a plan made up by the girls to get him not to play his shot in the dark. The next scene is at Siga, and it says 4 days ago. There's no reason they could not fit this into the previous 2-hour episode. Siga goes on a group idol hunt, and Jem finds the Beware Advantage right in front of everyone and stuffs it in her pants. And it's the same Beware Advantage that we've seen before. Jem waits for nighttime to go dig and finds the box. So Jem loses her vote for now until she finds the idol. At Nami, Hunter is building an impressive bed for himself. Hunter goes spearfishing and catches a little fish. We learn about his teaching and building survivor challenges for the kids and choosing teaching over going to medical school. Then they show his house that's full of life-size survivor puzzles that he made. This was scored with silly music to make him look foolish, but I think he looks prepared for the occasion. Venus tells us that she sees Hunter as a big threat, as he's obviously a big fan, and she tells Randon that Hunter and Tevin are obviously a close pair.
Hunter out because he has too many links with too many people. We need to break that chain immediately.
Brandon is not feeling well. He felt a zap in the night and now his arm is numb and he's having medical take a look at it. The doctor tells him he's got a trapped nerve, which he feels will make him a liability in challenges. They head to the challenge where they need to climb over obstacles in the ocean, including Nona's rolling pin, dig up sandbags, and land them on an apparatus. The winning 2 tribes win immunity and building supplies. Maria, Jem, Randon, and Soda sit out and they get started climbing over the crates. Nami falls behind with this. Siga and Yanu complete their rolling pin, and Tevin and Hunter go over the rolling pin together, which looked really cool. They all get to the sandbags at around the same time, with Hunter instantly nailing his sandbags one after another, really just eating and leaving no crumbs, winning immunity for his tribe and impressing Jeff. Siga and Yanu are facing off neck and neck, and I'm nervous, coming down to Q and Charlie, but Charlie gets his last bag, sending Yanu to tribal for a 3rd time. For winning, Nami also get to decide one person from each tribe to go on a journey, and they choose Liz, Ben, and Banu. Back at Yanu, they
asked me again.
So the other 3 return and are worried that Banu is spilling the beans about their whole game to the other players on the journey. Q feels very guilty that he couldn't help the tribe win. Q tells a story about how he messed up in a sports game in high school, and they wrote a whole article about his failure in the newspaper. This story sounded traumatizing. Q then tells Kenzie and Tiffany that he's okay with them voting him out if Banu has an advantage.
I'm being dead ass. I'm dead ass.
Tiffany is not down for this. She says her plan is to vote for Banu and hope he doesn't have an idol. They arrive to the journey and Liz flops out of the boat. Banu is instantly tearing up. They learn that 2 people will play for an advantage and 1 will just head back to camp. Banu opens up to the others.
Tonight's gonna be my last tribal.
Would you like a hug?
And he spills all the beans.
Tiffany and Q are really tight, and Kenzie's a mastermind.
It is a gold mine of information.
Being on Survivor is not to win $1 million. I want to win 1 million hearts.
That's like an Oasis line for sure.
They draw rocks, and Liz, sorry for you, you drew the white rock and have to go back to camp and not play. Ben and Banu have a cube puzzle they have to complete in an allotted time. Neither of them ends up completing it, and they both lose their votes. And now Banu can't even play his shot in the dark.
I'm in a deep trouble.
They return to their tribes, and Ben and Liz tell their tribes all the tea from Banu. Ben lies to his tribe about his mission and tells them that he competed in a counting challenge and doesn't know if he won an advantage or lost his vote yet. Banu returns to the tribe and he lies to them, saying that he got the white rock and had to go back to camp, and he downplays the amount of information that he shared about their tribe dynamic.
Okay. Well, thanks for the tea. That was juicy.
Just when you think Banu, king of lying, duke of deception, he goes and tells Q that he lost his vote, and Q wants to help Banu. Q calls Banu a liability he can turn into an asset, and calls Kenzie a threat who he needs to go. Q brings his plan to Tiffany, and she seems to really consider it, but
I think she's on my side.
then we go back to Nami, and Jeff and the doctor show up, which is never good. And they tell Randon that he may need surgery and he needs an MRI, and that Randon will be pulled from the game, and they say a teary goodbye to Randon, with Venus saying he was the only person she could trust and he's leaving with the beware advantage. Back at Yanu, Banu is crying to Tiffany and Jeff walks in.
Hold up.
Jeff tells them about Randon and that tribal council is cancelled. They're so happy at Randon's expense.
Look what happened, miracle!
At the end of the episode, we get an update from Randon saying that he's fine. With that, we say goodbye to Randon here, who I always felt had the potential to be a really good player, but what we saw of his game didn't really make much sense, where we saw he had a bug up his butt about Venus, snitching Venus out for looking for idols and calling her Parvati 2.0, which Soda didn't respond positively to and might have put Randon on the outs of this tribe. Then he finds the beware advantage and decides that the only person he can trust is Venus. Then he gets pulled out of the game here, and I would love to see him get another chance, but I just can't see it happening. Let's get into episode 4 titled Don't Touch the Oven. And after Randon's departure, Yanu has a big group hug. Then right after, Banu tells Q and Tiffany that he told the players on the journey that they have a close 3-way alliance with Kenzie, which instantly pisses off Q and Tiffany, and they're glad that they didn't vote Kenzie out over Banu in the last tribal. Tiffany reports this right back to Kenzie.
He's like a toddler. You're like, don't touch the oven.
Pardon my interruption, but she said the thing.
And he does, and then he cries.
In the morning, Banu is praying for help in the game, and the sky seems to open up with light pouring down on him. Okay, God, come through. The tribes get tree mail telling them they're going to have a food reward, which leads to a God tier musical moment.
Get on your feet if you want to eat.
What that bass at, Liz?
I'm in the mood to win some food.
At Siga, Jem reminds us that she re-hid the beware advantage that she found, and Maria finds it and throws it on the ground, but then ends up opening it anyway. So Maria publicly reads the clue that there's a box hidden under the tree, but Jem has already found it, and this is a different tree, so they're just digging in the dirt and ants for no reason, as Jem watches on for pure enjoyment.
I'm having fun on Survivor.
They head to their reward challenge, where Ben is thrilled.
All right, Jeff, let's go.
Nice.
And the tribes find out that Randon was pulled from the game, shocking the Sigas. In the challenge, they'll paddle in from the ocean to collect keys that'll unlock rings, and then they each need to get a ring off a pole. Then one player can get them onto another pole. They're playing for some big nasty fish and some little nasty fish. Venus, Ben, and Mariah sit out, so they get started. Tim leaps from the boat onto their buoy and completely flips the buoy over, and for a minute I'm like, Tim, you good, son? The one and only Liz and Kenzie don't have the same problem as Tim continues to jump on the deck and flop like a fish. Yanu and Nami get to the rings around the same time, but the one and only Liz can't get her ring, allowing Yanu to get ahead, but ultimately Maria struggles the most with her ring. Yanu ends up beasting this challenge, with Q ending up getting all 4 of their rings in good time and winning the big fish, and the second hunter gets to the rings. You know it's over for Siga, so Nami win the small fish. Yanu decide to trade their fish for the previous reward of the tarp and tools, which was really smart and needed. Nami comes back to their
5 stunningly gorgeous fish.
And Liz is happy about the fish because she's allergic to everything they've been eating. Tevin has a great moment when he offers to scale the fish, and he says that his dad, who passed away 10 months prior, taught him how to do that, and I have lots of respect for him being out there doing all this after such a recent loss. Over at Yanu, they fix up their shelter, and Q is trying to help Banu learn to communicate. He says that if they go to tribal again, Banu is definitely going, but in the case that they keep winning and all make it to merge, they want Banu to be a better player. They roleplay camp life.
Tonight, who you vote for?
I don't know who I'm voting for.
Would you vote Tiff tonight?
Oh, yeah, sure. So you voting Tiff?
And tribal council.
So, Banu, what's going on at your camp?
We're vibing with everybody. Everybody. I'm vibing with all of them.
Banu is so proud to report his new learnings back to Kenzie, and he asks Kenzie for more role plays, and she rejects him and he walks away very sad. I get that she's frustrated with him for many reasons, but Kenzie comes across really mean to Banu many times this episode. Not cool. At Siga, Maria is upset about her performance in the challenge, and they all get emotional as Maria opens up about being raised by Lebanese immigrants, and she was hard on herself when she didn't succeed in her life. This tribe always has such a great supportive vibe. They really are surviving, huh? They go back to digging around the tree for the beware advantage, and at this point they've dug up the whole tree. They start to suspect that the clue was planted by whoever found it. Mariah proposes to Jem that Tim found the beware advantage and re-hid it, and Jem rolls with it. They spread this rumor to the Charlie's Angels Alliance. Back at Yanu, Banu feels disrespected and like his tribe is treating him like a puppet. Kenzie decides to go apologize to him, and it makes him feel better. He handled this way better than I would have. At Nami, an announcement.
If anybody sees some dirty orange underwear, holler at me.
As they cook their panty soup, Soda says that Liz and Venus are at the bottom of the tribe, and Soda is playing hard with everyone. Tevin notices this and loses trust in Soda. He shares this with Hunter, who's down to get Soda out as well.
Soda got the Goda.
They get tree mail, a rare 2 tree mails in one episode, saying they have to jump off something. Mariah opens up that she's afraid of heights, and they comedically teach her how to jump. She truly can't jump. Their immunity challenge is jumping off a platform, swimming down to retrieve coconuts that one hero player will shoot into nets. The first 2 tribes to score 3 win immunity. Hunter, who's not afraid of being seen as a threat, nearly jumps from one platform onto the next, setting Nami off to an early lead. Banu skips a crate obstacle and has to go back. Mariah triumphantly jumps. Charlie shouts out, "Taylor, swim!" And Tim flops on another platform. Tim gets 1 basket in for Siga, but Nami and Yanu catch up with Q and Hunter shooting. Hunter, of course, makes it look easy and bodies the baskets. Banu struggles in the water, and Tim makes a final basket, sending Yanu to tribal council yet again. After the challenge, back at Yanu, Tiffany, Q, and Kenzie are ganging up again and excluding Banu, and he notices and overhears them talking negatively about him. Banu cries because he doesn't have a vote or a shot in the dark, and he looks everywhere for an idol.
I'm digging deep here. Dig deep, he says.
It's really sad to watch him desperately look for the idol that we know has already been found. Banu gets upset and breaks down. Kenzie comforts him.
What can I do?
Can you find me an idol?
and he begs on hand and knees for Tiffany to save him. Tiffany pretty much tells him he's going home in a nice and respectful way. After this, Banu says his teary goodbye to the island and finds some closure, telling us that he's going home tonight, but he's going to tell his story at Tribal Council. Tribal starts out with them talking about Banu exposing all of their games on the journey. Jeff flat out asks them if Banu is going home, and they agree, so Jeff just opens the floor to Banu to share his story. He tells them his story of living in poverty in India and being the first of his family to find education and find success in a different place. They don't vote, and Jeff just says, Banu, give me that torch, and gives Banu a hug, which is nice. So we have to say goodbye to Banu here, who was definitely a vibes player on a tribe with 2 cutthroat players in Tiffany and Kenzie. I think if he was more on a vibes tribe like Siga, he would have fit in more, maybe not on Nami. He has a big pure heart and says he's a big Survivor fan, which I find questionable because there are big parts of the game he didn't understand. I feel like he has a very old school approach to the game. So I understand his tribe mates' frustrations where they didn't sign up to teach someone who just ruined their chance at $1 million how to play the game. But I don't think it was right for them to isolate him and ice him out, given how emotionally vulnerable he is. Through all of that, he ends up being a big character through these 4 episodes, someone who I think is a lock for a second chance this season. And I think he definitely does better than he does here. Let's dive into episode 5 titled Tiki Man. The Yanus lick their wounds after Tribal being a Type 3 alliance, referring to themselves as the worst tribe in Survivor history, and they still have no fire. The next day at Siga, Ben is complaining about living outside, and the ladies notice that Ben has been following Charlie around the island, which puts a target on Tim and Ben, but this tribe has no time for strategy. They're late for Maria's salsa dancing class. Through all of the silliness, we're reminded about the girls versus boys alliances, Jem having the beware advantage, and Charlie and Maria's final 2, and I wonder if any of this is going to come into play later in the episode. At Nami, everyone's looking for an idol besides the one and only Liz, who can
barely find my shoes.
Venus knows the beware advantage left with Randon and assumes it's rehidden, so she decides to stalk Hunter, but when she leaves him alone, he finds it conveniently hidden out in the open, right at his own eye level. He reads the same clue we've seen 3 times already, pointing out this time that if they never lose immunity, there's still a way to get an idol. So I wonder if this tribe will ever have to go to Tribal. At Yanu, morale is low. Q is even resentful of the shelter.
Hell, even looking at the bamboo at this point, it's getting on my nerves.
Tiffany and Kenzie are trying to laugh it off, but Q is considering quitting.
I might say,
telling Kenzie he's okay with going home, but telling us he'd rather
die before I quit.
So he's lying about wanting to quit to trick Kenzie into not playing her shot in the dark if they go to Tribal, really showing that if they go to Tribal, Tiffany is going to be the swing vote between the other 2. At Siga, Tim asks important questions.
Tiki man, when am I gonna poop?
Poop. He said the thing. Tim is working on creating better fortune for the old trope of Survivor males who lose their minds speaking to objects and animals. Tim, who hasn't had a confessional in weeks, reminds us that he has a tight bond with Maria and confronts Jem about moving the beware advantage, and he accuses her of being the leader of an all-girl alliance. She runs it right back at him, telling him that he's in alliance with Ben. They're both right, and there's no reason these 2 are talking to each other one-on-one. They head to their immunity challenge, one of my favorites, where they have to climb through an apparatus to collect sandbags that they'll launch at targets with a slingshot. I freaking love a slingshot. They're also playing for a reward of pastries and fruit, which look bangin'. Jeff, who's comically bored with his life, decides to get sassy.
Last tribe to finish, otherwise known as
The losers.
I thought they might say Yanu.
Shady.
I'm just saying.
You're so sassy.
He tells Yanu that they're the longest running tribe in the new era without Flint, and if they lose this challenge, they'll have the most immunity losses as well. Soda, Liz, Mariah, Charlie, and Ben all sit out. They take off, and Tim, unlike his bowels, is really moving. Kenzie and Tiffany slow down the Yanus, and Soda calls Venus
My little walking stick bug.
Yanu gets the maze done last, but Q catches them up, so it all comes down to the sandbags, where all 3 of the players playing have to knock down 1 target each. Nami get theirs done quickly, as can be expected, and it comes down to a showdown of Tim versus Q. Q has an epic slow motion moment, and Yanu win their first immunity, a great moment. And what a shocker, Siga is going to Tribal and Tim, who hasn't pooped, is pissed. Nami decides to send Hunter, Tim, and Q on a journey. These guys decide to do every reality viewer's dream, an all-male alliance where they all have a +1. They decide that Maria, Tevin, and Tiffany are their tag-alongs. They have to decide between the 3 of them which one of them will get to do a Survivor knowledge test and risk their vote. They let Hunter do it, and it's so whack that only one person gets to play. Hunter has to arrange 20 logos of Survivor Season seasons in chronological order, this is actually really hard. Some of these middle seasons would really trick me, but at least we get this. Hunter ends up only getting 8 out of 20 right and loses his vote, but he already didn't have a vote from earlier, so at this point, he's seeking student vote forgiveness from CBS. I can't knock him at all for losing this, and I think they should have saved something like this for a team immunity challenge on an all-star season. Back at Yanu, Tiffany and Kenzie dive into their pastries.
It was beautiful.
Q returns, and luckily they saved him some food.
Who ate the half?
Just as I expected,
That chocolate muffin is busting.
they make a fire and are so happy as Tiki Man curses their bowels. Siga mourn their loss, and Jem takes off to get her Beware Advantage clue. She has to use her machete to measure items to fill in an equation, so she takes the machete and measures everything. Then she finds the idol and gets her vote back.
And I did it, and nobody has any idea.
The women strategize, considering using Maria's extra vote to split between Ben and Tim, with 3 on Ben and 2 on Tim, which upsets Charlie because he's really close to Ben, and he still wants to keep Ben. Jem confronts Ben for an armed standoff.
She's holding the machete, so I grab the hammer, try to hold my space.
She does the same thing to Tim, and overall her communication style really makes no sense and makes the guys want to vote for her, even though Ben has no vote this tribal. Ben asks Maria and Charlie to vote for Jem, and they weigh out their options. Ultimately, whatever happens will be their decision. At tribal, Ben entertains Jeff, and they're just vibing, talking about friendship and salsa dancing, and then they talk about their Beware Advantage chaos. It's a very boring tribal. It could have been a vibey email. Jeff reads the votes, and actually, pretty shockingly, Jem is voted out by a vote of 4-2, with Mariah being the only person on Jem's side and Maria using her extra vote for no reason. So let's talk about Jem, who had a pretty consistent storyline throughout all these episodes, being part of the Girls Alliance that became the named Charlie's Angels Alliance with Charlie. Then the only storyline on Siga for a while was this hidden Beware Advantage, which ultimately all was pretty unnecessary. It seemed like she was just creating a lot of mischief on the tribe. I think if you're in a place where you're in the majority alliance on a tribe that's never going to tribal, creating unnecessary paranoia probably will backfire. She also, of everyone, wasn't really looking for the fake planted idol under the tree, kind of just watching on and laughing at them, which made it a little obvious. In this episode, it seemed like she went on a bit of a power trip around the tribe. She had a lot of really tense conversations with the men, but not a lot of positive conversations around camp with others. Ultimately, I am shocked at her downfall here, being voted out with the idol in her pocket, as someone who I think would have stayed loyal to the Girls Alliance, and the idol would have come in handy. Moving on to episode 6, Cancel Christmas. Siga returned to their camp. Mariah feels blindsided and feels bad that she voted for Ben. Ben tries to smooth things over with her. Mostly, she's happy to still be in the game.
I would rather be a living fool than, a dead know-it-all.
The next day at Yanu, they're in great spirits. Kenzie makes a fire, Tiffany's eating a Granny Smith, a boat comes with a note telling them to drop their buffs, and they're so happy.
Peace out.
Tiffany names her idol
Adelisha, who I keep in my bra.
Siga deconstructs their camp, and Tim says if one of them have to go, it's going to be Mariah, and Mo wants to stick with the group. When Hunter finds out they're merging, he runs back to his Beware Advantage to get his further instructions. He gets a clue to his key that he thinks is at the steps. As he sits on the steps looking for his key, Venus and Soda are having an open quarrel right behind him. He finds the key just in time, and Liz comes up on him, and he runs back to get his idol. Comparing his minor task to what Jem and Tiffany had to do, this really was a gimme. So Hunter has his idol now, and the other two tribes show up in boats to Nami Beach.
Here they come.
On arrival, Kenzie feels like she's an experienced player, and the others aren't because they haven't had to go to tribal yet.
Giddy up, because we're about to play, baby.
The players are vibing, but they have no new buffs, so they know they're not merged. Venus tells Q that she wants to work with the Yanus and is social butterflying as Tevin warns the Yanus about Venus. Q then reaffirms with Tevin that he's interested in the 6-person alliance that they made last week on the Journey, and he calls it the Journey 6. Q meets with Maria and tells Maria about the alliance, but eek, Tim never told Maria, and Maria is squirming.
If Tim did not feel Maria in on the 6, Tim is not to be trusted.
Elsbeth also wants to join the alliance, but they ice her out. At night, Venus tries to talk game with the Sigas, and Tim and Mariah are not giving Venus any information, but Venus says she trusts Mariah and thinks she can trust her. Mo tells us that Venus is playing hard and she sees Venus as a threat. Charlie agrees. Tim meets with Maria to finally tell her about the Journey 6 alliance. Maria considers it but has to decide if it's good for her game.
I'm not here to play Tim's game. Come here to play my game.
Q interrogates Mo, and she's going with the lie that the last vote on Siga was unanimous. She tells Q that her favorite player is Aubrey, and this leads Q to tell Hunter that Mo is a threat because she said Aubrey, but I feel like she just said Aubrey because they both have glasses. Q says,
And if Mo thinks she's gonna set me up, Mo can cancel Christmas.
Oop, he said the thing. They pull up to their challenge where Jeff tells them they're dividing into 2 groups of 6. They have to race under a net, push a cart to get bags of puzzle pieces, go over a boulder, and then they're forced to all work on the puzzle together. The winning group will all be safe and make it to the merge, and will still get to vote at Tribal Council. They draw rocks to pick teams, and the tribes are lopsided with Orange Team Charlie, Mo, Soda, Maria, Venus and Liz, and Purple Team Kenzie, Ben, Q, Hunter, Tim, and Tevin. Tiffany gets to bet on a team to lose or win with. Tiffany picks purple, obviously. They get started and Orange gets off to an early lead in the mud, but Liz slows them down and then Purple eventually just leaves Orange in the dust. With the boulder they have to get over being the hardest thing they have yet to get done, Orange has an impressive feat of teamwork, forming a human ladder to get Charlie over, and they're all working on the puzzle at the same time. This challenge ends up being a nail-biter with them getting to the last level of their puzzle at the same time, Charlie and Venus against Hunter and Q, but that Hunter reign just won't let up and Purple end up winning immunity for the week. One of the others are going home and Soda's got that agita.
Agita where you get like chest pain, like a mini heart attack.
The winners go to the merge feast.
You know what? I hope they choke on that food.
And the merge buff is a really hideous color red. They get food and wine, and Hunter tells them all that he can't vote. But Tevin reminds us that he has an extra vote. On paper, the Yanus will be the deciding factor at this tribal. Tevin throws out Venus's name as a potential target, and the Sigas are hesitant to give one of their own as a name, which bothers Tiffany. Tim eventually folds and throws out Mo's name, but Tiffany sees them being cagey as a reason to cut their numbers and vote for Mo. The groups reunite, and Tim says he wants to save Mo, but when Charlie finds out about this plan, he seems pretty down to turn on Mo. Venus finds out about the Mariah plan and thinks it's stupid. She wants a man to go and wants to vote for Charlie, and spreads that plan around camp, which pisses off Q.
If you gonna be ungrateful, I'll send your ass back to Canada.
So what?
They head to Tribal with it still seeming to be between Mo and Venus. Tribal is pretty tame with Charlie saying he plays defensively. Venus has everyone shook, not realizing that everyone picks apart everything she says and calls the safe people kings in the castle. By the way, we don't get to talk about her often, but I live for Venus. Go off, chaotic queen, put me on edge. At this point, Mariah, for almost no reason, announces that she's on the bottom of the Sigas and that the last vote was not unanimous after all. Q says she should have told them that back at camp. Venus and Mo make one last plea, with Mo saying she's probably the most honest person at this tribal, which is a crazy thing to say when you've been lying to everyone for days. We get to the votes. Mariah decides to play her shot in the dark and it misses. Jeff reads the votes and there's one vote for Venus from Charlie, but the rest are for Mo, and Jeff tells the rest of them they're officially merged. And we lose Mariah here, who came to her tribe in the premiere saying that her entire life she struggles with making friends. Then she makes friends with Maria and Jem and gets emotional saying she's so happy to make friends. Which in the moment I was like, oh lord, what if they're not her friends? And then what do you know, at the first opportunity, her friend Maria turns on her, leaving her out of the vote right before the merge. She was in a place where she could have really played that and jumped ship and screwed over her tribe, but I think she was definitely disillusioned by the fact that she literally came there to make friends. I don't think they were excluding her from the vote out of disrespect. She just wasn't vibing with the rest of the Sigas on a game level. While the Sigas ultimately did end up voting her out, I guess they had the respect to tell her that she was going home so she could play her shot in the dark. And Charlie put that one vote on Venus basically as the contingency for the shot in the dark hitting. I'm glad that she threw the Sigas under the bus at Tribal and exposed them for lying about the last Tribal because she was doing them such a solid by lying for them, and they paid her in nothing but dust. I also feel robbed by Mariah and Liz not having a big moment, uniting and twinning, but I hope Mo and Jem are still friends. Let's dive into episode 7 titled Episode Several. Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod here to talk about Survivor Season 46, Episode 7 titled Episode Several. Last week on Survivor, the players were in Mergatory, with half of them earning their merge and the other half going to Tribal, where ultimately Mo had to go and was shown the dough. Before I dive in, I put a link below to my playlist where you can catch up on my previous recaps. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. Let's dive into it. The survivors get back to camp and celebrate being merged. They named their merged tribe Nui Nui. Venus is hurt. She saw her name written down and thinks it was Soda. We all know it was Charlie. Venus and Soda walk off into the jungle squabbling as they do.
Watching Soda and Venus is kind of the hottest tea of the night.
Charlie then randomly announces to Venus that he was the vote for her. Q is the strategy police of the season. He will pull you over. So he pulls Charlie over to teach him a lesson about how to play the game, which annoys Charlie and makes him want Q out. At night, Ben is having a panic attack and Kenzie holds his hand and helps him get through the night. It was a great Benzie friendship moment and really showed how loving and compassionate Kenzie is. They arrive at their immunity challenge, Endurance, balancing on a floating triangle. Jeff reveals the immunity necklace, and you better like it because Jeff has been up all night following the beating guide to make this thing. This week will be a split tribal where they split into 2 groups with 2 people winning immunity. The single person who lasts the longest will earn reward for their group and they'll go to tribal second, meaning whoever's voted out first will not be on the jury. They get started and the teams are purple with Charlie, Maria, Tevin, Venus, Liz, and Soda, and yellow, Ben, Tim, Kenzie, Q, Tiffany, and Hunter. Jeff announces,
"In honor of Jelinsky, you've been up here several minutes."
And this is the closest we get this episode to someone saying the episode title, which on one hand makes me sad, but on the other hand, buy Jelinsky's t-shirts. During a transition, Q and Soda are first out. The players are being silly and entertaining Jeff, especially Tim, who's kicking his biggest nemesis, a platform, in the water's butt. Eventually, Jeff tells them to go on 1 foot, which takes out a lot of people at once. Everyone except Tevin and Maria on purple, with Kenzie being the last yellow player to fall, giving her immunity. The last 2 face off, with Maria staying steady and winning immunity and reward for her tribe. Jeff sends them back to camp and tells the losing yellow team they'll be going to Siga Beach. Could be worse. Purple team has 4 old Nami in Venus, Tevin, Liz, and Soda, and 2 Sigas with Maria and Charlie. Venus thinks they're going to target Charlie, but Tevin says this is his time to strike against one of his own. On the yellow team, they have 3 old Yanus, 2 Sigas in Ben and Tim, and Hunter from Nami. Q tells us he threw the challenge today. Tim wants to take out Hunter while they can, but Q tells us that Tim wants to be in too many alliances, so Q wants to target Tim. Back at purple, Charlie asks for help. Soda tells Charlie that she's down to turn on Venus. Soda brings this plan to Tevin, but Tevin's been plotting on Soda for episodes, so Tevin sees this as a potential good time to turn on Soda. He brings the idea back to Liz, who's down for it. Tevin goes back to Charlie and Maria. Venus starts this round thinking Charlie's the obvious vote, but she offers Maria her vote for Tevin. Maria is not down and basically sees Venus as desperate. Then Venus goes to Charlie and presents breaking up Tevin and Soda. Venus follows up with Maria, and Maria tells Venus she's pressuring her and needs to back off on her approach. While Venus is annoying Maria, following up on the ideas that you present someone is a good way to show someone that you're serious. Heading into this tribal, Maria and Charlie feel like they're in control of the vote. At the yellow tribe, the Yanu 3 tell Hunter he's safe, but he still considers using his idol. Ben is hoping for the Yanus to help him. Ben tells Q that he's okay with getting votes on him with the goal of getting Hunter out, so Q runs this back to Tiffany and Kenzie, telling them that they need to vote for Ben. The girls think Ben is bluffing and don't want to go along with Q's plan. They head to tribal first, and style icon Kenzie has turned her buff into a bow. Conversation at tribal is the Yano 3 controlling this vote. Hunter says that Nami in general are a mess and the Sigas are loyal. Tim defends the Sigas and Ben gets emotional about his breakdown and says that Kenzie was there for him. Ben says he's happy he made a bond with someone because in the real world he struggles to make connections. Kenzie also gets emotional because the guys helped her through the merge challenge and it hurts her to vote one of them out. Q gives a further character witness for Kenzie, saying that Kenzie won the challenge and was a support for them at Yanu and leads the tribe in a full round of applause for Kenzie. Jeff reads the votes and Tim is voted out by a vote of 4-2 with the Yanus having sided with Hunter. So we lose Tim here. On the way out, he refers to himself as the sexiest guy to ever do this. So it's obvious he sees himself as a very comedic character. In the beginning of the game, I thought he was in a bad spot because he wasn't included in the Charlie's Angels alliance, and the show made it seem like his bond with Maria was BS and that Maria was going to turn on him, but he was in pretty good standing with the Siga tribe actually, being part of a core 4 alliance that if it weren't for this split tribal really could have gone far. He was pretty good at challenges, though comically bad with the floating platform. Also, they showed Tim complaining about constipation and never gave us an update on his poop, so Edgic is dead. At the purple tribal, Charlie says he feels like the odd man out, being the only Siga eligible to be voted out. Nami are playing up that they're sticking together. Maria says she doesn't feel like anyone approached her at all, and Liz announces she didn't even bring her bag. Charlie pulls out his shot in the dark, and Venus says she thinks she'll be the victim of the shot in the dark if it hits. At the voting, Charlie doesn't play his shot in the dark, so the game is obviously afoot. Jeff reads the votes, and by a vote of also 4-2, with Tevin as the only vote in her favor, Soda is voted out, giving a teary goodbye and exchanging hugs with Venus, who gives Soda her props on the way out. And we lose Soda here, who had a big personality but didn't really get a lot of screen time. She provided us with some great musical moments. She was in the mood to win some food. Her story in the game was pretty simple, with her tribe winning every immunity challenge pre-merge. The amount of downtime that the Nami tribe had definitely worked against her because Tevin was plotting against her a lot. I think if Nami actually would have lost lost a little, Tevin and Soda would have been bonded closer together. I'm left off not sure if Tevin really was voting to support Soda at this tribal, or if he's just acting for that jury vote. Overall, I feel like we were a little bit shortchanged from Soda, because I think there's a great player there. I think she's a fun person to be the mayor of Ponderosa, though. Also, not to speak out on something, but the way that people treated Soda on Twitter was disgusting. They ganged up on her, backed her into a corner, and forced her to delete. Nothing but love for Soda from Reality Art Pod. Moving on to episode 8, titled Hide and Seek. We learned in the previously on that Tevin definitely was in on the plan to get Soda out. Back at Nui Nui, the first group who voted out Tim get back from tribal. Ben is upset that he lost his rock in the game. Q wants Ben to come talk on the beach, but everyone else wants to...
Yeah. It's sure to be kiki funny. I'm going to change the way this game is played.
The other group show up with Venus, which shocks everyone, especially Kenzie. Venus instantly publicly calls Tevin a liar who prides himself on honesty. In confessional, Tevin laughs about it, saying that the Soda vote out was really his move and he'll take credit for it at Final Tribal and still be able to tell Soda he didn't want to vote for her. The one and only Liz is annoyed by everyone taking credit for Soda when she's been proposing Soda the whole game and wants to take more control over her game.
And I have to start taking action or the action is going to be taken on me.
The next day, Q models his Q skirt, which is just a hoodie around the waist, backwards, and he does a whole Shark Tank presentation with a unique selling point being the crotch pocket. Charlie sees Q as someone who's running the game, and Charlie makes an alliance with Q in the morning. They basically invite Charlie to Journey 6. Maria loves the idea of the Final 6, but Charlie doesn't love it because he just watched them cut Tim loose and sees this as his potential demise. Later, Q decides to play hide and seek, and oop, they said the thing repeatedly. Q is tricking everyone into playing hide and seek because he thinks whoever's the best hider is best at the game. Charlie starts off being it and starts finding people who then start finding other people. Liz finds Q, which puts a big target on her in Q's eyes. They never find Hunter and Ben, but Hunter is up in a tree above camp. Big mistake, huge. Later, Venus asks Tevin to chat, and he allows her to be delusional and take credit for the Soda move, and she even teaches him all about how she pulled off the move and tells us that basically Tevin sucks at the game. As she walks away, Tevin cracks up laughing and further agitates Liz.
Shut up. I'm sorry, Tevin, but you gotta go.
Tiffany tells Tevin that she doesn't mind Venus staying around because she's a nuisance but not really a valid threat because she's ineffective in the game. This signals to Tevin that Tiffany is a threat to the rest of the Journey 6 and reports it back to them, which obviously sets off Q because he's been set off by over half the cast just in this one episode. When Q talks to Tiff privately, she brings up Maria's name.
She's in the 6, Tiff. Big mistake.
Then Q reports this back to Maria and tells Maria that Tiff has an idol. Then Q furthers his 90-minute ego trip, telling us that turning on his #1 ally Tiff is basically genius, and
I'm a mob boss. They dare not to say a name within my organization. If they do, send them packing. I send them a Q skirt, though.
They head to their immunity challenge, which is classic endurance, holding onto a pole for as long as you can. Jeff also offers them a big bag of rice if 4 players agree to sit out, or if 2 players agree to give up their votes. Nobody wants to sit out. Good, let's end this annual tradition right here. Q and Liz step forward, but nobody joins them, so they lose the rice they never had. They start the challenge. Q and Liz are out early, followed by Kenzie, Ben, and Maria. The players get silly, with Tevin doing bird calls. Charlie asks Jeff if he's a Swiftie, and Jeff confirms. Soon after minute several, Tiffany and Tevin fall. Venus, who proclaimed she thought she was going to win this before the challenge, falls and further makes herself look bad to the other players. Seeing that Hunter's going nowhere, Charlie falls, giving Hunter immunity, and Hunter hangs upside down, just showing off that he had more tricks up his sleeve. Back at camp, what do you know? Q is not happy, this time with everyone, saying they thought they could beat Hunter, the tree climber, in that challenge, and they're all idiots who can cancel Christmas. Liz decides it's her time to strike, and she tells the group that she wants Tevin out. This sparks some people outside of the Journey 6 to spread Tevin's name, with Ben, Kenzie, and Tiff is down too. Tiffany then tells Q that everyone is voting for Tevin, and if he doesn't get on board, then he might be next. Q confirms with Liz that this is the plan, and then he tells Hunter that Tevin is going home, and there's nothing they can do about it. Hunter then goes to talk to Liz, Q, Maria, and Charlie, and everyone sees them talking game on the beach. Venus walks over to break things up, and they shoo her away. As they head to Tribal, once again, it's painted that Maria and Charlie are making the final decision tonight, and with 2 idols in the game, anyone could go home. At Tribal, Jeff brings up the rice negotiation, and Q admits to having a temper tantrum at camp. Liz says she wanted the rice because she's allergic to everything out there, and she hasn't pooped yet. Here's where I pull out my Survivor whiteboard. Q randomly halts everything to tell Jeff that Q is going home tonight and explains that there's confusion in the game because of mistakes that Q made, and because of this, he wants everyone to vote for him, and after he's gone, they can all start playing the game the right way. He says he doesn't want to steal anyone else's dream. Kenzie and Tiffany are shocked, and Tevin says if Q wants to go, let him go. The players break out into groups, and Q tells Tiffany she was getting votes tonight. Tiffany asks Charlie about that, and Charlie tells Tiffany and Kenzie that Q told everyone Tiff had an idol. Jeff refers to this as one of the craziest tribals ever, and they go to vote with multiple frustrated confessionals.
That was the dumbest thing ever.
Dumbest tribal ever.
I know.
Whatever. You've been out of Mississippi too damn long. Your brain is gone.
I was surprised when no idols are played, and Jeff reads the votes, and by a vote of 8-2, Tevin is voted out. So I'm speechless, but I also have a lot to say, so I'll start talking about Tevin, who's probably the standout character of the season, coming across as having a winner's edit just from commanding the screen so much in any scene he was in. His game started strong with him having strong bonds with Hunter and Soda, who are both going to stay loyal to him. I think the frustration of never going to tribal pre-merge got the best of him, with him plotting against Soda for a long time and making an enemy out of Venus, where he and Venus really could have gotten along if he had any interest in it, but he didn't want to play with her, so they make it to the merge and he totally overplays it with the Soda vote, with him coming across to the others besides Venus as a strong player who is pandering to the jury and is close allies with the golden boy who's winning everything. So the second Liz said his name, it was over for him. I think his larger than life personality warrants another shot at the game though. We get to episode 9 titled Spicy Jeff. They get back to camp and everyone is shook. Kenzie is mad at Q for his antics. Q quarantines himself on the boat at the beach and tells us that he was being dead serious about asking to go home because the game wasn't going the way he wanted it to, and back home he holds himself accountable to his mistakes, but he feels great pride for staying even though he asked to leave.
I guess I'm too hard to kill right now.
Tiffany confronts Q, asking why he exposed her idol, and he says he did it because she turned on Maria and the Journey 6.
Are you stupid? Are you dumb?
Oh, she's yelling on me. Family dispute.
It becomes a big blow up with Liz and Venus eavesdropping, and Liz feels like her big game move was overshadowed by all the drama and breaks down about it in confessional. She now feels like she needs to make another big move to compensate, and she's coming for Q's ass. The next day, a group of survivors meet at the well to talk crap about Q. Ben feels like Q is pretending to be on a moral high ground because he's terrible at the game, and they all agree not to give Q their vote in the end. Venus also calls Hunter the village idiot because he was on the outs of the vote.
And I knew no one would get mad if I wrote your name down.
I got mad.
Except you, but you're always mad.
That's rude.
These bumbling buffoons, two dumb meatheads. Karma is a bitch.
Hunter decides that he no longer wants to work with Liz, which makes him a lone wolf by choice, and his plan is basically to win immunity and use his idol, and then work from there, which really isn't the best strategy. They get tree mail telling them to split into trios for their challenge, and the teams they pick are Ben, Tiffany, and Kenzie, Maria, Charlie, and Hunter, and Q, Liz, and Venus. Q floats the idea to Maria and Charlie to throw the immunity challenge to make Hunter eligible to be voted out.
Throwing a challenge, yuck. I'm not gonna do it.
Maria and Charlie agree that Q has cracked ideas and they don't trust him, and Maria sees Tiffany as a threat and wants to vote her out with her idol. They head to their immunity challenge and Jeff asks them how they got into their trios, and they all say it was random. This irritates Jeff, who animatedly shakes the idol at the players, saying that there's no way it was random when they're playing for immunity. Tiffany chimes in that they all just didn't want to be on a team with Q, and that satisfies Jeff. For their challenge, they'll be competing in 3 rounds with only one person winning immunity in the end. The first round is a set of balance beams to collect materials, then they have to dig up some rope rings. The first 2 teams to complete it move on. Maria bodies this, getting her trio off to a fast start, and Kenzie sets hers off slowly. Maria, Hunter, and Charlie crush this with no problem. Q, Venus, and Liz complete it as well, so Kenzie, Tiffany, and Ben are eliminated. The next round is building a rope bridge with rungs. They each have their own bridge to complete, then they each need to land a ball on a target. Liz has a Herculean save, rescuing her rope. Hunter finishes his and then goes back to help Charlie, with them finishing theirs first, getting them off to a hot start, and then they get all their balls as well, moving them on to the final round. So Maria, Charlie, and Hunter compete in the final round, which is an endurance challenge where they're standing on a perch. These 3 are very serious about this, and Maria drops first, ending with a face-off between Hunter and Charlie, who are both struggling and quaking and could drop at any moment. Hunter eventually gives in and Charlie wins immunity. Back at camp, there's awkward silence, and Venus is excited that they have options between Q, Hunter, or a blindside. Q is trying to stir up more trouble, pulling Kenzie aside and telling her that Tiffany has been in the Journey 6, and Kenzie tells Q that she doesn't want to work with him, and that he was in the 6 too, and shoos him away. Kenzie runs this right back to Tiff, and Kenzie sees an opportunity for a blindside and brings her plan to Maria, Hunter, and Charlie.
How do you feel about Tip's idol?
Wait, I'm sorry, can you run that back?
How do you feel about Tip's idol?
This really shocked me, and they tell Kenzie that they're down. Privately, Maria and Charlie like this plan, and they like that they can pin the plan on Kenzie. Charlie talks to Tiffany, who says that she wants to play Idolicia, which pretty much kills their plan. Ben, Maria, and Charlie decide to change the plan from Tiffany to Hunter, so Ben breaks the news to Kenzie, who thinks that plan is boring. Hunter gets nervous and runs calculations in the sand and decides that he's playing his idol tonight. He goes to Q and tells Q that they should target Ben, and he asks Venus and Liz to work with them. Liz and Venus were planning to vote for Q and are hesitant to work with Hunter. By the time they go to Tribal, everyone knows that Hunter's playing his idol, so anything could happen. At Tribal, Jeff starts off with some drama of his own, saying that he's ready for a show, so he brought a cushion and some popcorn so he can enjoy the show. They pass around the popcorn, and Liz gets to eat something, which is pleasant.
I thought Spicy Jeff was back in season.
Oh, Spicy Jeff is back.
Oop, they said the thing. And you know these performative antics from Jeff motivate the survivors to put on a show. So Tiffany comes in hot, explaining that Q tried to tank her game, and Q and Tiffany have words, with Tiffany saying that he's jealous of her. And Tiff really gives Jeff his money's worth, saying that Q was pushing Hunter's name all morning, which freaks Hunter out even more. Hunter turns to Kenzie asking what's going on, and she tells him that everyone's voting for Q. And everyone starts assuring Hunter that they're voting for Q. It's hard to pay attention to anything going on because Hunter is so torn and disturbed at this tribal. And the big question we're all wondering is this all an elaborate ruse to trick Hunter? They get to voting, and we don't get a preview of who anyone votes for, which keeps things spicy. Jeff asks for idols, and he doesn't get any when Tiffany and Hunter both hold off on playing them. Jeff reads the votes, and they alternate between Q and Hunter with 4 votes each. The last vote is for Ben, so we have a tie, and they go to revote between Hunter and Q. After the revote, Hunter is voted out by a vote of 6-1. I'll talk about the vote in a second, but first we have to say goodbye to Hunter, who came into the game a lot of people's winner pick, definitely filling the role of the person who's over-prepared. With his whole house being full of survivor crap, it came in handy though because he single-handedly carried his team through to the merge, winning every tribal immunity that he played in, though he was in a strong position with his tribe and didn't really need to win all that stuff. The other tribes were definitely always going back to camp and talking about how good he was and how much they need to get him out when they can. To his credit, he does manage to survive one tribal without safety. In the split tribal, which was rare good gameplay from him, but overall I found him to be a really passive player. After he made his alliance with Tevin, it doesn't seem like he ever talked game, to the extent that in the last episode when Venus saw him talking game, she was shocked. Even in this episode, Venus referred to him as the village idiot, and he really did get bamboozled being voted out with an idol in his pocket. I'm hesitant to call him a terrible player because I feel like he does have potential to return and fix some of these mistakes, and this round of gameplay from him was one of the worst, with not using the idol to save Tevin, declaring that his strategy was to win immunity and use his idol, losing immunity, telling us he's gonna play his idol, telling everyone at camp that he has the idol and that he's playing it, then just getting tricked into not playing it and voted out. That's pretty bad. Episode 10 is titled Run the Red Light. The players get back to camp and Liz is annoyed that she wasn't informed on any of the plans at Tribal.
I am trying to hold my composure so I don't explode. What the heck, you hoe bags?
Liz tells the other players she felt stupid and left out. Q is again quarantining himself on his boat on the beach.
He flew too close to the sun and his wings burnt off.
Maria sees value in Q because he's still in the game, so she goes to talk to him and butter him up a little. Q tells us that his strategy right now is to win immunity. That was Hunter's strategy last week, Q. In the morning, Maria, Charlie, and Kenzie reconvene to follow up on the plan to blindside Tiffany. Maria says she thinks she can get Q to be in on it. Kenzie says,
a huge checkpoint on your resume is voting out your number 1.
I don't know where this comes from, but I completely disagree. Whatever happened to loyalty? Their challenge is an epic obstacle course. Jeff calls them all skinny. For the reward challenge, they need to navigate through the course and get a sandbag at the end. Then they have to throw and land it on a perch. They'll be playing for the biggest reward of the season, Applebee's. And Liz is trying to revoke Karishma's title as #1 Applebee's fan, saying she gets Applebee's every Survivor Wednesday with her daughter. My family ordered Applebee's watching this. Jeff describes the food sensually. And Liz in last. Eventually, they're all throwing their bags. Liz almost sinks her first toss and celebrates being close, but Q ends up winning the reward and overnight stay at the sanctuary where good things happen. Jeff tells them that he could bring friends, and he picks Tiffany because he wants to mend the fences with her. Liz starts begging to be picked, and Q picks Maria because she checked in on him when he was alone. Liz is now crying, and Jeff points out that Liz can't eat anything, but Q still picks Kenzie to join them. Jeff asks Liz how she's feeling, and she has an all-time Survivor meltdown.
I'm pissed! I see you eat every day! Q, you almost blew up my whole game!
Anyway, Q, Kenzie, Tiff, and Maria will be eating good in the neighborhood. Back at camp, Charlie, Venus, and Ben support Liz. In confessional, Ben is sympathetic toward Liz in a way that's still a plug for Applebee's.
The bourbon burger is her go-to menu item.
At the sanctuary, the Applebee's looks really good, though if I were there, I would demand a soft drink, a Diet Cola perhaps. Q is trying to mend the fence with his ex-tribe mates. Kenzie says Q is like an unhealthy ex-boyfriend taking her to Applebee's to hope she forgets what he did to her.
Takes a little more to woo me.
The server brings out Liz's burger, but they're so full, they don't even touch the burger. Back at camp, Liz breaks down, sharing that she grew up with food instability and flashback to her childhood and to her at Applebee's with her daughter. They really showed us the receipts that Liz goes to Applebee's. Back at the sanctuary, Q walks away and Tiffany and Kenzie agree that Q still needs to go. Maria doesn't like hearing it, but will consider it. The next day, in the morning, the winners return to camp and brag in detail about their feast.
I didn't even touch the burgers.
I'm surprised you didn't bite like a little bit of
Oreo milkshake, hands down.
Read the freaking room.
Liz apologizes to Q for her outburst.
I was lying. I'm not sorry. I'm super proud of myself for yelling at him.
Maria and Charlie meet to debrief and they go over their target list, but agree that Tiffany is still their #1 target. Their immunity challenge is an endurance competition holding onto a handle that's holding up 25% of their pregame body weight. Jeff offers them a rice negotiation where 4 people can step out to get a bag of rice. When they don't agree to it, he offers them a little jar of rice that an individual can have to themselves, which is basically offering Liz some food, so Liz takes the little rice. They get started and Venus is quickly out. Ben asks Jeff for a Van Halen quote and I guess he gets one, then he's out. Venus casts a spell on Q from the sidelines. Q then drops, which makes the ladies happy, and Kenzie and Maria drop soon after. It comes down to a showdown between Charlie and Tiffany, but Tiffany hasn't moved a muscle since the challenge began. Shockingly, Tiffany collapses, giving Charlie his second immunity in a row. Then Charlie tells us he's been doing a lot of practice to his grip strength over the last few years to prepare for this. There's a joke to be made from that, I promise. Back at camp, Tiffany is expecting a near unanimous vote for Q, but is still contemplating playing her idol. Maria brings up voting for Tiffany to Kenzie, but Kenzie isn't down anymore.
If I keep sitting back and waiting for the light to turn green, it may not turn green. So I'm gonna have to run the red light.
Ooh, Maria said the thing. Maria then goes to Q and tells Q to vote for Tiffany, and they get Ben on board too, so they have 4 votes. They consider their options for the 5th vote and settle on approaching Liz. So Liz is the swing vote heading into this tribal council, deciding between Tiff and Idalicia or her Q. At Tribal, Kenzie burns her hair with her torch, and talk is of Q being the perpetual decoy for every vote since the merge. Through Jeff's questions, it really feels like Jeff is signaling for Tiffany to play the idol. They talk about Liz's blow up, and she basically admits in front of the jury that she's not really sorry. They all vote, and Tiffany decides not to play her idol. Jeff reads the votes, and it looks like they ran the red light because by a vote of 5-3, Tiffany and Idalicia are voted out of the game. So we have to say goodbye to Tiffany here, who obviously has a big personality. I think she could be a very fun character, though I really feel like we didn't get to see her live up to her full entertainment value on the season. There were fun moments. I love that she named the idol Idalicia. She successfully found the idol, which put her in a really good spot in her starter tribe, being right in the middle of Q and Kenzie. At times, she overplayed, and I didn't like her overkill treatment of Jess. At the merge, Q outs that she has an idol. I can't blame her for telling him about the idol, given how much he was chastising Banu for having a big mouth. Once everyone found out about the idol, she should have just played it. She got lucky last week with the Hunter vote. At this tribal, it really felt like Jeff was signaling to her to play the idol, as it's such a waste that all 3 original idols weren't played. I would like to see her maybe on the Amazing Race or the challenge. Let's dive into episode 11 titled My Messy Sweet Little Friend. The survivors get back to camp and celebrate being final 7, but Kenzie is bummed and upset that she was left out on the Tiffany vote when she would have gone with it. So she feels blindsided on the Q is for quarantine boat on the beach. Charlie tells Kenzie that the plan was Maria's decision. Back at camp, Maria proposes that the group who voted together of Maria, Charlie, Ben, Q, and Liz take it to the final 5. Venus consoles Kenzie, telling her to keep her cool and act like she's not aware that Maria's running the game. Early the next morning, Maria, Kenzie, and Q watch the sunrise, and Maria sets the intention for the day.
I'm like shocked Tiff didn't play her idol.
I guess that means it's time to start looking, right?
So everyone starts looking for Tiffany's idol when there are, I guess, 2 or 3 idols hidden around camp. Venus knows where Tiffany and Ranton found their idols, so she figures out where an idol is and finds it with her little stick, then rejoins the searching crowd. Then there's this.
Where's Liz?
Venus eventually opens her advantage and confirms that it's a real idol that's valid until the final 5. Kenzie and Venus meet again and bond over wanting to target Maria.
Here we are, me and my messy, sweet little friend.
Oop, she said the thing. Charlie congratulates Maria for the Tiffany vote and she is feeling herself. They can't believe that people don't see that they're running the game. Maria wants to keep bringing Q along, but Charlie's over Q and wants him out. Liz and Kenzie go for a walk where Liz says that Maria has to go and tells Kenzie about Maria proposing a final 5 of the people that voted voted together. Venus joins them and tells them that she thinks that Q found the idol, probably to get their votes off of Q, and tells them that she can get them the 4th vote that they need. Venus tells us that the 4th vote she has in mind is Charlie, so she approaches Charlie and starts working him. Venus and Kenzie tell Charlie that he's basically perceived as Maria's assistant, and offer him the choice between Maria and Q, which seems like a good way to get his vote. They head to their challenge where they celebrate being the
Final several.
Long live Jelinsky.
Their challenge starts with them navigating over a balance beam with a ball on top of a stick, then using the same sticks to navigate their ball on a table maze and sink 2 balls in 2 holes. They're playing for immunity and another sensual reward.
Pizza delivery. Pepperoni. Hawaiian.
And gluten-free. A soda.
They get started and Challenge Beast Charlie bodies his balance beam, followed by Kenzie, Maria, Liz, and Q. Maria takes the lead, sinking the first ball in the maze, and now everyone's on the table maze following her, with Venus looking very compassionately at her ball. Maria drops her second ball, allowing a bunch of other players to catch up to her, and they're all messing up over and over. It comes down to Venus and Maria in a nail biter that sees Maria winning individual immunity. She decides to share her reward with an emotional Ben. For her next pick, she asks the other players to plead their cases to join her, which came off especially mob bossy. Maria really racks her brain about who to take, with Jeff saying he's never seen someone take this long to decide. Maria says she really wants to take someone who's starving and falling apart, and it's between Q and Liz, so she has them rock, paper, scissors, and Q wins. Liz says this is fucked up, and it kind of is. Q is definitely not starving. Just last week he was eating good in the neighborhood. They head back to camp where the pizzas have been delivered, and the no rewards are all bitter as hell about how the pizza picking went. Venus labels Maria as a villain, and they all agree to vote for Q at next tribal. The pizza eaters are enjoying a pizza that looks dry as hell and terrible. As they gloat, they discuss targeting Venus and being sure that Venus doesn't have an idol. The pizza eaters return to camp, and Q informs Charlie that Venus is their target. When alone, the women confront Maria, with Liz calling her weird for her decision and Venus throwing eyes everywhere. Liz is going off about Q, and Maria is like, Liz, he's right behind you, and Liz has I don't give a fuck itis at this point, and says the reason she has so many allergies is she takes shit from everybody her whole life, and she's over it. Maria pulls Liz and tries to mend things with her, telling Liz that she likes working with her in the game. I think Maria would love Liz to be in the finals with her, especially after the daily outbursts. Kenzie and Venus talk to Charlie, who tells us that he envisions a Final Four that doesn't have Maria or Q in it. Venus then, very wink wink nudge nudgy, insinuates to Charlie that she has an idol, and confidently tells us that she's not playing her idol tonight. As a viewer, you're like, Venus, no.
You in danger, girl.
Charlie and Ben meet and agree that they want Q out, but that conversation with Venus really spooked Charlie. Kenzie calls the boys scared babies for wanting to go back on the plan for the Q vote. They head to Tribal, where Jeff brings his cushion and some licorice for the show and gives them all a piece of rish to share. They talk about Maria's pizza reward decision, a conversation that makes Maria look really bad, with Venus calling Maria an actress and cruel, which leads to some sassy back and forth between Q and Venus. Jeff brings up blindsides again, obviously pandering to Venus that she may need to play her idol.
You in danger, girl.
Liz tries to express how she feels about Q, but can't get the words out. And Venus and Q have another brush up to vocal reaction from the jury.
That's why you didn't know about the last vote.
But I knew about the previous 3 and you didn't, so.
Ooh.
They head to vote, and Jeff wants idols, but no idols are played, and the votes are 1 for Q, 1 for Kenzie, and 5 for Venus, becoming yet another person voted out with an idol in her pocket. That's 3 blindsides like this in a row, which somehow is boring. And we have to say goodbye to someone I was really rooting for here in Venus, who was pretty consistently entertaining throughout the season. She really played as a good foil to any of the players that were in power at any given time. You can tell she's a gamer who came to play hard, and she's not afraid to speak up and cause chaos, which was a pretty big weakness for her in the game because all of her tribe mates saw her as a chaotic figure. Through that, nobody really wanted to trust her, even though she was bringing people some really good ideas. The sketchy reputation that she had made it hard for her to make real allies. Coming into the merge, her tribe was annoyed with her and wanted her out, but the other players didn't seem to see her as a big threat to win the game. It seems like they saw her as a nuisance that they were willing to keep around, but I feel like this was an especially bad episode for her, where she made herself seem like a huge threat in the immunity challenge, then she finds an idol and tells Charlie about her idol. She insinuated to Charlie that she was going to use the idol to make big moves and get win equity. At that point, she was cooked. I think she's a really interesting player. I'd love to see her play again. I feel like this season she was playing like a returning player, which ended up being bad for her, but on an actual return, I feel like she'd be underestimated and probably do really well. Moving on to episode 12, titled Mama Bear. The survivors return to camp after tribal council, and Q is happily canceling Christmas because Venus, who was just voted out, was trying to get him out.
They say you can see Venus from Earth. Well, we don't see Venus no more in this camp.
They speculate about who voted for Kenzie, and Ben admits that he voted for Kenzie by mistake. He feels really bad, and she tells him that she got her first vote of the season from her island bestie. Maria is upset on the Q Beach boat because Venus dragged her at tribal in front of the jury, and has the rare sobering, sad, standing, leaning on a tree confessional where she admits that she's playing the best game, and the other players would be making a mistake to keep her around. Later, Ben wakes up with a start and is having another panic attack. They talk about how his panic attacks have been getting worse. Kenzie takes care of him and talks him down, being a good friend to him. By the way, congrats to Kenzie, who just announced on Mother's Day that she's going to be a mom. She'll be a great mom. In the morning, Liz has a confession.
Not to make it about me, but I had a BM.
Congrats to Liz, who announced today that she pooped. Charlie meets with Ben and Kenzie at the well and is heavily considering going with them to turn on Maria and Q, but he has a strong connection with Maria and feels guilty going against her. They head to the reward challenge, which really looks like a complicated gauntlet. They'll have to high step through an obstacle, then maneuver a bag through a ladder bridge to get a ball, then crawl under an obstacle and use their ball in a table maze. The winner of the challenge goes to the sanctuary where good things happen for some Chinese takeout. They get started with Charlie getting to a lead in the high step. Things even out, but eventually Maria gets a lead heading into the table maze. As always, in the end, everyone is on the table maze and anyone can win. Then there's this.
Oh, I'm bleeding.
Charlie ends up winning the challenge, and Jeff springs on him that they're going to wash down their Chinese food with letters from home. Charlie picks Liz to join him because she hasn't eaten and her daughter loves Survivor, and he picks Kenzie, who reveals that she moved her wedding to be on Survivor. He adds that they are all the people who didn't have pizza in the last reward, which is the diplomatic approach. The non-winners get emotional, especially Maria, who is missing out on letters from her kids. At the sanctuary, Liz is finally eating the Chinese takeout that looks so good, and she feels in good company. Charlie feels remorseful about not picking Maria, and they flash back to them calling each other Malcolm and Denise way back when, and he says Maria is selfless and she'll completely understand. Cut to back at camp, Maria is having a full meltdown. She feels that Charlie went back on a promise to take her on rewards and says she feels robbed.
All I can think of is like, you keep some bear cubs from Mama Bear. I'm coming.
Oop, she said the thing and she's pissed. The winners get their letters. Liz gets hers from her daughter. She even got a little drawing, which is cute. Kenzie reminds us that she was supposed to get married the day before and her fiance was so supportive that he moved their wedding. She shares that she's been self-employed since she was 17, but is reminded by things like that she has support. Charlie gets Taylor Swift lyrics from his girlfriend and is reminded that his family want him to play to win, which means betraying Maria. Liz is now full, fun, and flirty.
Such a bucket list thing. Hi, Charlie.
Charlie tells us that he needs the ladies' support to execute his blindside of Maria. Back at camp, Maria and Q are frantically idol hunting, and Q has something to show us.
Oh, let me go in my pocket. What's in my pocket? What's the... And behold.
Q shows Maria his new cursed item, and Maria says she's not worried about Charlie and the girls teaming up, but she suggests that they vote out Charlie. Where's Ben this whole time? Unknown. The players all reunite, and Charlie and Maria have a moment of appreciation for each other, while their knives are pretty much drawn at each other's backs. Charlie tells Maria that the talk at the reward was voting out Q. This conversation seems like the last conversation in a breakup where you agree to be friends, but you both know you're dead to each other. They vote to an immunity challenge where they have to climb up a tower, leap off, navigate a balance beam, and solve a dolphin puzzle. Well-fed Liz communes with the sea.
First,
they get started, and Maria impressively bodies the ladder climb, balance beam, and makes it to the puzzle first. Everyone is on the puzzle as Kenzie struggles to crawl across the balance beam, but she completes it to an impressive survivor dive. Ben takes a lead, but here comes Maria absolutely annihilating the puzzle, winning immunity and foiling Charlie's plans yet again. Back at camp, it's back to the drawing board for Charlie and the gang, who decide the new plan is to vote for Q. Maria and Q agree that the best move would be to take out Charlie. Q tells Liz and Kenzie about this plan, who both agree it's still time to vote for Q. Kenzie and Liz report back to Maria and tell Maria that they're down to vote for Charlie. Charlie and Ben meet to weigh out the benefits of lying to Maria about this vote, and Charlie decides to tell Maria that he's voting for Q, but Maria believes that the girls are voting for him, and this is all a mess, topped off with Maria wearing a Q skirt. They head to tribal council where I'm sure Jeff is instantly regretting not bringing his cushion.
Yo, let's light it up.
We have a show for you tonight.
They talk about the reward challenge, and Charlie diplomatically commends the people who didn't get love for being so selfless. And Kenzie says the tribe is like her family, with Liz being her grandma and Charlie being the dog. Maria shares that she used missing out on the love to motivate her in the immunity challenge, which seemed really impressive to the jury. Jeff brings up blindsides, which we all know is a signal to Q to play his idol. They get to the votes, and we see Charlie vote Q, and Maria vote for Charlie, and oop, it's going down. Jeff asks for idols, and again, he doesn't get one. In the end, Q is voted voted out by a vote of 4-2, becoming the 4th person in a row voted out with a cursed idol. So we have to say goodbye to Q here, who was definitely one of the stars of the season. Early in the season, he was in a really good spot with his strong alliance with Tiffany, and they had Kenzie on side, really putting them in charge of the starter tribe. During that time, he got a lot of personal content explaining his history as a professional athlete. Now he's a successful business person. Even in the premiere, it felt like he was a potential winner. I think being in control of the Yanu tribe for the first few weeks and going to tribal every single time really made him feel like he was in control of the game. So he became very high and mighty, really treating Jess and Banu like peasants, going as far as to lecture Banu and coach him about how to play the game. They eventually vote Banu out for not being able to keep secrets and being too volatile. Then they head to the merge and Q straight up becomes Banu. He did everything he told Banu not to do, having emotional outbursts at multiple tribal councils, exposing Tiffany's idol, who was on his side. While there were a lot of negative aspects, there were a lot of positive aspects to Q as well. Firstly, I love the chaos, so as a reality person, he's cool to me. I also think he has a really good sense of humor. The Q skirt was humorous, his cameos are also hilarious, and he also just popped in on Dead Meat Podcast Horror Survivor video, which is cool to me because Dead Meat is my favorite YouTube. Q also said he wanted to change how the game was played, and he did have some interesting ideas. For example, there were multiple times where he told people he wanted to quit, even the tribal when he asked everyone to be voted out, but he obviously really didn't want to go home. So I think there's something to be said about tanking your game on purpose to lower your threat level. So he tried it and he almost succeeded. I think if he makes it to final tribal and is able to communicate clearly that that was his plan the whole time, he could win. But we lose him here, and I think we'll definitely see him again. I think the producers really like him. We get to the season finale, episode 13, titled Friends Going to War. We enter with our host, J.E. Double Hockey Sticks. We're down to our final 5, Charlie, Kenzie, Maria, Liz, and Ben, in a 3-hour showdown for $1 million. After the last tribal, Maria asks Charlie to talk at the Q isolation boat, where she blames Liz, Kenzie, and Ben for tricking her into turning on him. Maria feels bamboozled, and Charlie feels like he's a big threat. The one and only Liz has slayed her nemesis.
Q, my darling, you got played.
Maria declares that it's game on, and basically it's time to go big or literally go home. The final 5 enter for their immunity challenge, where they need to race through obstacles to drop a bridge, get a key, and solve a block puzzle that is a key to a combination lock. These survivors have a lot to do here. They're also playing for another sexy sanctuary reward.
In addition, playing for a reward. The winner will be taken to the sanctuary for pasta,
Caesar salad, garlic bread,
macarons, wine, and soda.
To add no pressure at all, Jeff tells Maria that if she wins this challenge, she ties the record for immunities won by a woman. They get started and squeeze through their net wombs. Charlie gets out first and hits himself in the face with his bucket. His whiplash allows Maria to catch up to him and eventually pull forward into a lead on the puzzle. Out of nowhere, Kenzie starts bodying her puzzle, finishing it first and celebrating like she won, and Jeff tells her to follow the instructions on the puzzle. Kenzie asks Liz for help with her combination, and Liz does Kenzie a favor, going back to the start and getting Kenzie's plank for her. Kenzie and Liz work together to solve the puzzle in an epic girl power moment that ends with Kenzie winning immunity and Liz also celebrating winning immunity. They give Maria her props, but Maria is rightfully devastated and pissed that the girls work together to beat her. Liz tells Kenzie that she's allergic to pasta, so Kenzie takes Ben to the sanctuary and gives Jeff a filthy muddy hug. Kenzie and her island bestie Ben go to their pasta, which looks like it rocks. They agree that Maria's most likely going home unless she finds an idol. Back at camp, Charlie is buttering Maria up as a potential jury vote and as an ally if she finds an idol. Maria also game plans ways she can convince people to save her. First, she tries to turn Kenzie against Ben, but Kenzie isn't having it, and Maria still spreads around camp that Ben voted for Kenzie on purpose and runs a whole campaign against him. Liz acknowledges Maria's points as valid, which the editors have a field day with to convince us that Maria has a chance in hell.
If I can pull off this move, I'm gonna win this game.
Talk at Tribal is about Liz helping Kenzie in the challenge. Maria says that she's proud of herself showing up and showing out in a bit of a tribute to Maria that really becomes Maria's funeral. With Ben eulogizing that Maria outlasted, outplayed, outlived, and outshredded them all, and Kenzie openly admits that she's voting Maria out of respect. The music becomes uplifting and mournful at the same time. Maria basically says goodbye to the game and speaks to her kids about how proud she is of herself, and she knows that they'll be proud of her too. She speaks to being an immigrant from Lebanon and how she was raised to be gracious and humble. They get to the votes and everyone is shown respectfully voting for Maria. Jeff asks for idols, and for a second you're wondering if Maria found an idol but they didn't show it. Maria ends up being being voted out by a vote of 4-1, with the 1 being for Ben by Maria, and they give her a standing ovation on the way out. So we have to say goodbye to Maria here, who is an interesting person to analyze. She starts her game running the game with Charlie pre-merge, being in the middle of the girls and guys alliances on Sega. At the time, I highly questioned her decision to turn on the women, but now that I see the big picture, that was not a squad that Maria could ride with to the end of this game. She showed her mob boss tendencies, bossing Jelinsky around on that journey, which put her on a lot of people's radar as a potential winner pick. She had a tight grip on the game, and had she made it to Final Tribal, she probably becomes a deserving winner. For the first half of the game, I really felt like Maria was redefining the mom stereotype on Survivor. I thought it was cool to see her acting like a mob boss and being really cutthroat, but I feel like the last 2 or 3 episodes have been very heavy with the mom content. In the end, Maria's character on the show reminds me a lot of Julie from season 45, just with a few more competition wins. The mission of the duplicitous moms is incomplete. Someday soon, a sneaky mommy will triumph. After Maria's departure, back at camp, they celebrate slaying Maria, and as they're getting to bed, Ben has another panic attack, and there's a montage of Ben struggling and Kenzie helping him. Ben ends up being a really great example of conquering anxiety and accepting support from others. The next day, Ben and Charlie celebrate making it this far as the Dumb and Dumber Alliance, an alliance that we've never heard of until now.
We're friends going to war.
Oop, he said the final thing. They get a clue about their Final Four immunity, and Liz doesn't want to make fire because she has a wrist condition. She shows us her wrists, and the show puts a sound effect over it. But you know what? I'm going to replace it with my own sound effect. Challenge, actress Liz has a new bit.
Will you help an old lady, Charlie?
Me, Ma.
For their challenge, they have to solve a Survivor puzzle, but they can only work on their puzzle while their ball is rolling on a Plinko timer, so they have to keep an eye on their timer, and if their ball falls, they have to wait for it to roll down a track, really slowing their progress. The winner gets immunity and the decision about who will have to go to fire to fight for their life. They get started, and the little elves are working. Charlie ends up dropping his ball, resulting in him being greatly set back. Kenzie, who's tied in the lead, throws her ball off the challenge, setting her back because she has to find her ball in the sand, and Charlie again drops his ball and has to wait. It comes down between Kenzie and Ben finishes first and wins final immunity. Ben attributes his power to supporting his inner child, and it's a great moment for Ben, probably his best of the season, and he gets to decide who to bring with him to Final 3. Back at camp, Ben tells Liz that he wants her to go to fire because she has friends on the jury. Her case is that she's a millionaire and nobody will give her money, and...
I hear my wrists.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work on him. After he leaves, Liz breaks down.
They're on to me, and I'm pissed. Freaking loose-ass wrists.
Ben struggles to decide between Charlie and Kenzie. Kenzie seems cool to go to fire, but Charlie doesn't want to and thinks he already has enough of a resume to win the game without it. The vulnerable players go through various stages of grief as they practice their fire: stress, mania, chaos, anguish. Donna, Lynn, Pat, Shelly, Brian, Darren, and Ulysses. At Tribal, they highlight Ben's story, and ultimately his decision is to take Charlie to Final 3 and send Liz and Kenzie to fire. They head to fire making, and Liz quickly gets a flame, but it goes out. Kenzie is moving frustratingly slow, and these two were really giving me anxiety. Kenzie eventually gets a flame that she can nurture and nearly lights herself on fire in the process. Eventually, Kenzie builds a big enough fire to break her rope, giving her a teary celebration and completing the Final 3, sending Liz to jury.
Tomato, tomato.
After winning, Kenzie points out that her starting tribe Yanu were the tribe that went longest without flint, and she thought that it would be fitting to go home without fire, but she's grateful and proud of herself. Jeff asks Liz how she feels about being out, and she says,
It was really over for you guys. It really was. I want to beat all of you.
So we have to say goodbye to Liz here, who for the first few episodes was really only being highlighted when she was bragging about herself and how rich she was, calling herself the one and only Liz. I really thought she was going to be an early boot or villain of the season, but as time went on, we really got to see the campiness that is Liz. She added so much comedy to the season, with the absolute highlight being her Applebee's meltdown. She also was obviously a fan and a really good player. She knew people were seeing her as a GOAT and had a lot of motivation to make big moves. The big moves were made, and there was a lot of talk this finale about Liz being a threat to win, with Liz telling them on the way out that she would have smoked them. I feel like we were really shortchanged of a Liz final tribal. I'm so sad we didn't get to see it. And I'd love to see Liz again on TV in any way on any show. Back at camp, the final three celebrate and we get opinions from the jury, with Tevin being such a great narrator that was really gone too soon. The perception of the jury coming into Tribal are that Ben played an honest, loving game, but that he didn't really play the game. They feel Kenzie played a great social game and everyone likes her, but they want to see what she did in the game. Charlie has his whole resume written in the sand, and the jurors say that Charlie is a challenge beast who definitely played the game and they're ready to hear about it. The jury also looks so effing good. Go off, mommies. Tiffany starts Final Tribal off, telling them they don't want to hear Taylor Swift lyrics or pop culture references. They want serious answers only, and asking them for their big move of the season. Ben says his big move was joining up to vote out Q. Charlie commandeers Ben's answer to make it about himself and discount Ben, which I don't think was necessary so early. Charlie then says his big move was taking out Hunter, and Hunter points out that Kenzie actually was the one who tricked him. During Kenzie's answer, Q interrupts her and makes an ass of himself, and she handles that interruption with class. When asked about mistakes they made, Charlie boasts about being in the Journey 6 alliance, and Hunter tells him he shouldn't be bragging about being in that alliance. Kenzie owns her mistakes and has a really strong idea of her game, which makes Charlie squirm in his chair. Around midway, Ben is flopping and is a non-factor. Kenzie's giving the jury everything they want, and Charlie is giving calculated, terrible answers. He even admits that he wouldn't have sent himself into fire at Final Four because he was so confident he would win the game. When Q asks them what they do with the money, Ben gets a platform to promote his cause, Young Musicians Unite. Charlie wants to donate and pay for law school, and Kenzie says she's been working since she was 15, and she employs people and wants to use this money to invest in herself and start her family. They get to voting, and it's clearly a split between Kenzie and Charlie. In the end, by a vote of 5-3, Kenzie is declared the winner of Survivor 46. I'll talk about the final three in a minute, but first, they had the after show where Charlie was very pissed. Maria explains that she voted for Kenzie over Charlie because Kenzie's a competitor with a great story. The rest is really chatter. Y'all know I'm not a big fan of the after show. It's way too fresh in their minds for them to really reflect. So let's talk about the final three, starting with Ben, who didn't really do much this season. I'm sure there were casual viewers who forgot he was there a lot of the time. For the whole game, he was in good graces with the power players. Because we're always seeing other people's strategies, it makes us feel like he's being dragged along. Though he seemed to be branching out from his original tribe and making bonds, at least with Kenzie. As a player, he was pretty ineffective. Voting for the wrong person by mistake is actually such a big mistake. I do think his story about his panic attacks and coping with his anxiety, accepting support, and finally triumphing and winning the final immunity, so that was nice. Also, his yellow and green jacket, someone dropped the link, I want that jacket. Moving on to Charlie, who I predicted after last episode would win the season. Charlie and Maria ran the game from the very beginning, with Charlie really coming in clutch and winning that immunity to take Hunter out of the game. We saw Charlie's strategy in confessionals the whole way, and all of it was so good. We got tidbits like him saying the best time to strategize was in the morning. He had excellent restraint in the way that he turned on Maria. It all seemed to go wrong for Charlie in this episode. He was so confident that he was going to win. He didn't see value in going to fire at Final Four, and even admitted that to the jury. He completely came into that final tribal thinking he had the game sewn up and totally underestimated his competitors. I think given a second chance, he could correct some of these mistakes, but the pool for smarty pants male returnees, that's a tough crowd. We may never see Charlie again. And finally, our winner, Kenzie, who's definitely a satisfying representation of the season, given that the whole pre-merge was pretty much about the Yanu tribe, and so much of that was told through Kenzie's lens. I was on the fence about Kenzie in the beginning. I feel like the fake idol play with Jess was really overkill and overplaying. As the season went on, we really got to know Kenzie, and I think especially taking care of Ben showed us her at her best, being loving and just a really good friend to him. As a player, she's not the best at challenges. Strategically, she didn't make a lot of big moves. She tried to blindside Tiffany that one time and it wasn't effective. And then when the actual Tiffany blindside happened, she had nothing to do with it. The jury could have given her a hard time about that at Final Tribal, but they swept it under the rug. That speaks to her biggest strength, her social game. She rizzed it up with that jury. Even though she didn't have the best resume, she ate at that Final Tribal. I could totally see her playing again and making a super deep run and being underestimated again and winning again. Also, I thought it was so cool hearing her talking about wanting to use the money to start a family, knowing that she just recently announced that she's pregnant, and I feel like that's a really positive note to end on. Getting into my thoughts for the season, I wrote down 3 things that need improvement and 3 things I really liked. I guess I'll start with the things that need improvement. I feel like there should have been more diversity in the rewards this season. Specifically post-merge, we have all this time to do these reward challenges, but I feel like for like 5 episodes in a row, the reward was to go to the sanctuary and eat something. There was no auction, no snorkeling with the jellyfish adventure. I guess they did get letters, but who cares? I actually liked on season 42 how they got video messages from home. I think on season 43 or 44, they did the video messages, but didn't air it. I just feel like there's something really stale and not entertaining about someone reading a letter on camera. Speaking of stale, I know the 3-tribe format gets a lot of hate, and I also don't like it, but I just want to see some change. 2 tribes, 4 tribes, give me something different. Especially because the seasons don't have themes anymore. I feel like they were trying to make things spiced up by different advantages. I guess that goes hand in hand with my third issue for the season, which is the advantages. They really seem to dumb down the game this season by making the advantages far more simple. The Beware advantage has been downgraded to an idol that's just a pain in the ass to get. I feel like something in the psychology of the Beware advantage makes people feel like the idol is such a precious item, which resulted in no idols being played this whole season. So I'd get rid of Beware advantage and just opt for a regular idol being hidden at camp that gets re-hidden when someone plays it. There was nothing ever wrong with that, and also part of having more diversified reward challenges is they could hide idols at rewards. Some things I really liked about this season were it was a great cast. I live for a cast of cracked out characters, resulting in a lot of great off-air drama and interactivity after the season. I also think this season made the most of 90-minute episodes and did a good job telling the story of everyone in the game without painting an obvious winner, even though there were clear hints to Kenzie winning the whole time. I also think Jeff has finally started talking to us, the viewers, like we're not 12 years old, where I feel like earlier in the new era, Jeff was trying to be like a Mr. Rogers type character. He's really found his stride and leading into his King of Sass title that was really keeping us fed the entire season. So there you have it, the entirety of Survivor 46 from my lens. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back this summer talking about the entirety of Big Brother 26. I'm also wrapping up the Challenge All-Stars and my Survivor Borneo retrospective series, which in the end will also have a big video like this. Let me know in the comments what were your best 3 and worst 3 parts of the season for you. Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye!